We have a super exciting panel today with some fantastic Caribbean people who have built movements or leveraged movements for climate or environmental action. And today you're going to hear from them how you build those movements, how you leverage them, but also how you get basically a team behind you to get to the right place. Good morning to all of our participants. Today we have Vandana Magru, we have Akil Calendar, and Lawrence Arjun. As I said, we have some very exciting panelists, and I'm going to start first by letting them introduce themselves and tell you a bit about their story, how they built a movement, before we get into some questions later on. So Vandana, I'm going to pick on you first. You're the person at the top left hand of my screen. Tell us a bit about yourself and the movement that you've built.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Vandana from Trinidad and Tobago. Very nice, warm morning that we have here so far. So a little bit about my story. Back in 2016, I started a company called Hello Green, and we were the first company in the Caribbean to bring compostable and biodegradable food packaging, single-use packaging to the Caribbean region. So since then, I've been a part of many discussions surrounding alternatives to single-use plastics with various governments throughout the region. So Trinidad and Tobago, of course, Antigua, Barbados, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I've traveled to these countries and had a lot of discussions. And also right here in Trinidad and Tobago, I also work with the Ministry of Planning and Development, as well as the Bureau of Standards, to get a lot of legislative changes happening in terms of creating new standards and just a lot of, movement and behind that transition, like I mentioned, away from single-use plastics. Some of the more recent things that I'm working on is a project called Close the Loop Caribbean, which aims to implement circular economy projects surrounding different forms of recycling, primarily organic waste. So that would be using the compostable packaging and the organic waste, such as food waste and so on, actually creating a system to collect that waste, compost it, and then we use that waste to do regeneration at forests and so on. So it's kind of a mouthful there, but that's just it in a summary. And I hope to get more, share more details with you as we go along. So thank you for joining.
So started in Trinidad, but ended up way beyond. I'm excited to ask you how you expanded into other islands later on. But first, Akil, can you tell us a bit about your story and the movement that you built?
Thanks, Alexander. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to the organizers for the invitation. My name is Akil Calendar. I'm also from Trinidad and Tobago, and my specialty is energy. So I currently work as the youth specialist at Sustainable Energy for All. It's a UN partner organization that's specifically focused on Sustainable Development Goal 7, which is clean, reliable, modern, and affordable energy for everyone on the planet. To get there, it's an interesting story. So being from Trinidad, I, as many of the young people that I know from my country, started off in the geoscience field. I started off as a geologist, worked in the oil and gas sector for a little bit, and then realized I've always been an environmentalist myself, and I realized the very direct impact of the fossil fuel industry on climate, on the environment, and wanted to do something about it. So I started off by founding an environmental movement in Trinidad called Greener Side. I think I've actually worked with Vandana before on a project back in, I think, 2018. So it's great to see her again, where we basically, our goal was bridging that gap between complex climate science and public understanding. And from there, I realized there's also the opportunity to do stuff on a larger scale through policy. So to accomplish that, I went to do my master's. So I got a Chevening scholarship to do my master's in energy and sustainability policy at the University of Edinburgh. Then following that, and I focused my dissertation on the clean energy transition in Trinidad and Tobago. After that, I returned home, and then I started a job as an energy consultant for the World Bank in Latin America and the Caribbean. So I wasn't directly working with Trinidad, but working with many Caribbean islands on furthering their energy transitions. And then I realized, there's a huge opportunity with the youth population to really make this movement happen and to drive it forward. And I started doing a lot of advocacy on the side as a youth activist on firstly starting on Caribbean things and then on Caribbean platforms, and then kind of elevated, I guess, quite organically to global stages. So to date, I've spoken on a lot of international stages across the world on the importance of youth participation in as we move towards SDG 7 as an underpinner for climate action, for any of the other sustainable development goals, and the importance of opportunities, platforms for dialogue, seats at the table for youth to be involved in this movement and for it to actually be a just and equitable energy transition that we pull off. And I have been sneakily at the side because my organization doesn't necessarily focus on the Caribbean region, really trying to advocate for more action in this region, which has been successful. So I'm currently working in Barbados and trying to expand the work that we do in the region. But yeah, that's a bit about me in a nutshell, and we can learn some more, I guess, through the questions that Alexander will ask. Thanks,
yeah,
Alexander.
that's super exciting, Akil, and it's interesting to hear that you started kind of in a more traditional geoscience role, saw an opportunity, pivoted towards that opportunity, but also we're hearing from both you and Banana, sometimes you have to move a little bit beyond home and there are chances to build your movement beyond your local geography. Fantastic. So Lawrence, let me turn it over to you. Let's hear a bit about your story, where you started and how you got where you are.
Thank you very much, Alex. And I am really excited to be part of this panel, after hearing those two stories just now. It really inspires me. Because we have so much talent, we have so much energy, we have so much passion in the Caribbean region. So it's really great hearing these stories and hearing some opportunities for collaboration going forward. So my name is Lawrence June. I really am, I believe in my core about sustainability. And that's something that manifests in multiple different ways. My academic studies have been in geography and communications and cultural studies, which is a bit of a weird mix of things put together. But my career, my work professional career has been in the media, in the energy sector, and now in the development space in Trinidad and Tobago. So my career has kind of moved like my academic interests. But all through it has been about how do we now build the systems, optimize the systems that allow us to operate efficiently, operate well, operate sustainably with the focus on people and planet at the core of everything that we do. So that manifests itself now in the work that I do at the Heroes Foundation. So the Heroes Foundation has been operating in Trinidad and Tobago for the last 20 years. And the organization is really about helping children and youth find the hero within themselves. So to find the courage and the ability within themselves to overcome whatever challenges they are facing. And then very importantly, go on to collaborate together and lead positive change. And that positive change is aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. So when I came into Heroes in 2020, we revised our program curriculum. So we have a 3-year program that's really focused on sustainable psychosocial development, 21st century skills development, and then sustainability education that results in youth-led projects that support the Sustainable Development Goals. And we co-created that curriculum with the young people. Because if we are an organization for youth, we need to have youth inclusions. When I came in, we set up a youth advisory team. We appointed the chair of the youth advisory team at 17 years old to the board of our directors. So there was an input at the highest strategic level. We integrated the advisory team into the program operations, into the activities that we do. And the curriculum work that came out of that focused on 3 core areas. 1 is equality and elimination of violence. 2 is energy and environmental sustainability. And 3 is career and personal development planning. And that is important for us because with the 500 young people from across the country who we engage in the process, those are the top 3 things that were important to them. So our work really is about how do we educate these young people? How do we empower them to lead activities? And then how do we create spaces where young people are included? Because youth inclusion is a challenge, we know that. So what we've been doing at Heroes is actively trying to create spaces create tables where we put young people with government ministers, with industry professionals, with state leaders to have the critical and the real conversations about what our future needs to look like.
Ernst, you got me equally as excited. And it's really interesting that, you know, your foundation really focuses on building up others. And I'm wondering if building up others is the beginning of a movement, but also you spoke about the importance of listening to your target audience when you're designing a way of engaging them. I also noticed something, you know, you didn't start introducing yourself. The first thing you said was, these are amazing people. How can we collaborate with them? You know, how can I build partnerships with the other two panelists? So I'm going to turn it right back to you and ask you, you know, in terms of building a movement, what is the importance of building partnerships? What's the importance of working with others when building that movement? In your experience?
One thing that I've heard that has stuck with me is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I'm really, in everything that I've seen, collaboration is so important. So backstory, before Heroes, I was part of the first local gas company in Trinidad and Tobago. So after 150 years of hydrocarbon work, we never had a local gas company. So we're part of building that first gas company, de novo. And it was an amazing opportunity for me, because the CEO at that time brought together a very diverse team, young people in the team, and put young people into senior leadership positions with mentorship and guidance. And that really showed me the power of collaboration. Because I think if that kind of structured environment wasn't created, it would have been a lot more difficult. I mean, it was difficult, but it would have been a lot more difficult to do what we did. That is just one area of where I've seen the impact of the work. If we are trying to change hearts and minds and change we are beyond reversing the impact on the climate, on the planet. Now, if we are looking at how do we now adapt to what is needed, we're going to need all hands on deck working together, because rallying people behind a cause that impacts them and showing them how these big concepts and these sometimes far-fetched ideas has a direct impact on their life is how you start building that movement to bring about change. Because the only way we're going to get change is if individual actions are changed, so we can have a better collective approach.
I love that. So, you know, fundamentally, listening to others is essential to building a movement. And you need more perspective than just yours to really be able to build, you know, something behind other people. Vandana, it sounds like you're not just addressing environmental problems, but you're also kind of creating markets. You know, you're creating a market for a product that maybe not existed previously. And I think this really applies, of course, you're doing environmental stuff, but to climate change in a significant way, because we activists or Gen Z activists may have to create new spaces where those spaces do not currently exist. So I want to ask you, how do you create space? How do you create awareness for something that may not currently exist, that people may not actually think is currently a problem, like previously, you know, plastics and single-use containers?
Yeah, and actually going off of what Lawrence just said with collaboration. So actually, when I started my company, I was just looking for a job and I had a passion about business. It's what I grew up in. So I decided to use what I know and combine that with my passions, which was the environment, and find a niche that no one was really looking at. And at the time, you know, I thought, okay, let me try this. If it doesn't work, then I can pivot into something else, but kind of treated everything as a learning opportunity. Because sometimes in life, the best learnings are actually from failures. So not being afraid that, oh, this may not work, but just going into it with, you know, open eyes and open arms to accept whatever came. Luckily, it was successful and we're still, you know, going strong. But along the way, we had a lot of obstacles to overcome. But with that, at the time, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know that markets were going to be opened up. I didn't know what I was going to learn and who I was going to meet. And one thing about collaboration is that you start to see that you don't know everything. You're not an expert in every field. And once you can accept that and you learn that, then you are miles ahead of most people, because sometimes people want to think that they know everything and they can operate on their own and, you know, they are the experts. But actually, when you stop and you listen and you meet other people that are better at things than you, then you guys can actually focus on what you're really good at. And like Lauren said, go much further together, as opposed to trying to compete. So for example, some of the things that we're doing now is we are trying to create recycling systems that are actually companies can pay for. We're also trying to create impact projects where it's investable, which is not something we currently have in the Caribbean. You know, we're looking at things like the carbon market and creating locally generated carbon credits. And so these are all things that are very new, but without the right team and without the collaboration that we have together, it wouldn't be possible. So Close the Loop, which is the project I mentioned, is actually set up as a consortium, meaning that it's actually a few key players, such as myself, Hello Green. My partner is actually I Am Movement, which is another NGO in this space. And then we have other companies and other players that are equally playing a part. So it's not led by one person, it's led by multiple people. And finding your tribe is really important. And it's also somewhere where you can feel like you belong and you have others to run ideas off of. And like I said, everyone is good at what they're good at. And, you know, sharing that, you know, like I said, sharing what you're good at, but also accepting what you're not good at is really how you can really build a stronger team and move forward faster and further. So.
I love that, particularly because you're, you know, emphasizing the importance of constantly having a learner's mind. You learn from others, but also you figure out what your strengths are, but also what other strengths you need in those partnerships to get really far, as Lauren said, not just really fast by yourself. Akil, you know, I feel like you've had a very excited kind of career arc. You know, you started kind of in the more traditional petrochemicals. You know, you've pivoted, but also you've gone geographically beyond. You know, I wanted to ask you, you know, how, when you started, did you believe that you'd end up where you ended up? And how does it feel having gone through that journey? What advice do you have for young people kind of initially starting out, you know, and how does it feel getting to where you've gotten, you know?
That's a great question, Alexander. And I'd actually like to tie it into the previous points that both Vandana and Lawrence made in terms of collaboration. So let's hold that for now. In terms of me thinking that knowing that I'll be where I am now, absolutely not. It wasn't a thought in my mind. But I am here because I was able to like really leverage opportunities and doors that were opened. And most of the time, those doors were opened through collaboration. It's not necessarily collaboration, you know, in the typical sense where, you know, you enter like a partnership agreement or you work with somebody on something, but, you know, collaboration is relationships. Collaboration is mentorships. Collaboration is, you know, just conversations in some cases. A really good example for me was a critical part of my journey was actually working at the Journal of Caesar as the development officer with Masao, right? And that happened in 2018. I got that opportunity through a field trip with the Geological Society on a day that I really did not want to leave my house, you know, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm going to go out, I'm going to have conversations. And I'm going to see what I can learn and who I can connect with. And I actually met someone who knew Masao and put me in touch, and that led to that, you know. And so a big part of it is being able to, you know, one, leverage these opportunities, sometimes adopting when we're at a very early stage in our careers, this very much open-minded mantra where we expose ourselves to opportunities. We kind of fight that fear that we may feel, you know, the fear of the unknown, the fear of rejection in a lot of cases, you know, and just take those steps, take the risks, and do the things that might seem challenging to us. And to focus in on this mentorship component for a second, I would not be where I am today without my mentors. My mentors back in the Geological Society, my mentors at university, my work mentors now. Ms. Howe is also one of my mentors. They have been like critical for my journey. And that's because I've also been able to look at mentorship in a different way. That's not just, someone who is a professional in a field that, we might like to enter, but someone that I look at my mentors as a friend and as a support system. When I have troubles with, doubts that I'm having on my journey, when I feel uncertain, I can go to these people and get their advice, get their support. And of course, it could also be very practical. You have a job that you have an interview for, and you want someone to run you through, a mock example or something like that. Anything, practical or developmental along your journey. This is really critical, and I really wanna probably throughout my my answers keep coming back to this mentorship component, because it's a critical part of collaboration that is essential for your journey. And then to touch on the recognizing opportunities, what I call standard versus pivotal opportunities. There are opportunities that as young people
Sorry, what did you call them? You just say that one more time.
Standard versus pivotal opportunities.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So for me, standard opportunities are the opportunities that you might just be exposed to as a young person. You get a summer job, you are able to get an internship, you have a lecturer that takes a liking to you at school or at university, and you have access to now this person who has a wealth of experience, or you're invited to speak at something, or you're invited to apply for a role within an NGO or a youth organization that you don't necessarily think you're qualified for, but you just go about doing it. And these opportunities build these let's say life skills and soft skills that can help us in our journeys. But there's a moment in time where you get exposed to, I would say, an opportunity within that opportunity that can really shift the trajectory for you, and cause you to like slingshot along your career path, or like really move further than you anticipated and open doors that you did not expect. And being able to recognize these is also really, really critical. And it could be, you go to a conference and you have the air of someone quite senior who, you don't necessarily think you should be talking to, but you take the dive and you go up to them and you strike up a conversation anyway, right? And 9 times out of 10, the chances are that this person doesn't have young people approach them very often, because most young people feel like they shouldn't be having this conversation with this senior person at whatever company or whatever the case may be that they want to work at. And so it takes an interest just because you took the initiative, So that's what I want to encourage you to do. But the only way, and this is my final point, and helping me to get to where I am today, the only way that you can do that is knowing where you want to go. If you don't set out your plan, be it, and this can be subject to change, but if you don't set out a rough idea of where you want to be in 5 years, in 3 years, in 2 years, there's no way for you to be able to recognize what a pivotal opportunity is. There's no way for you to be able to recognize an opportunity that can get you to where you need to be if you don't know where you need to be. So these are the things that have really been essential for me. My mentors and my networks, my ability to recognize, these opportunities that can really help move the needle a lot further than a regular chance or a regular day job, etc. might. And then taking that risk, thinking outside the box, not being afraid of rejection, and just doing what you need to do to get to where you need to be, and also giving back wherever you have the opportunity to. So I'll stop there, Alexander.
No, I mean, there are lots of beautiful nuggets there. I really like when you said that collaboration and mentorships, and that these relationships are also a collaboration. And I'm sure that Masao, and I think he just said something in the chat, he said, completely mutual feeling. Amazing to see your journey since. So I think, yes, you got a lot from that mentorship, but also Masao got a lot from that mentorship. And it's a beautiful two-way road. And I think young people need to recognize that taking that risk also benefits the people that you're speaking to. And you speak about standard versus pivotal opportunities. But you spoke a lot about creating those pivotal opportunities, knocking on those doors, risking that conversation, and realizing that, okay, you may be taking a roulette gamble, but you're not gambling their money, you're only gambling your time in that conversation. And who knows, it may quadruple, it may be a standard opportunity, it may be a pivotal opportunity, it may, slingshot you forward. So I think, you can combine all of those things, take the risk, talk to the person, create a new mentor, create a pivotal opportunity, jump forward. So I really like that one, Akil. Thank you so much. Lawrence, you are our communicator. And, I saw someone in the chat singing your praises as a communicator. Can you speak to us about how do you convince people to join your movement? How do you make that conversion of somebody who may initially be skeptical of what you have to say, or your message may not feel like it's for them, particularly with climate change? People are worrying about feeding their children. People are worrying about keeping a roof above their head. So as a communicator, how do you convince people to make that conversion and join your movement in your experience?
Thanks, Alex. And I will say that, communication is not only about delivering your message, but about listening to what people have to say, listening to feedback, understanding where people are at in their journey, in their understanding of things, and then finding the best ways, the creative ways, the simple ways to get your message across. I mean, Akil just gave us a beautiful, beautiful step-by-step guide in how would you go about really leveling up your entire game, not just about building a movement, but your entire game. And what I heard there as this conversation was going, and I'm looking forward to Akil doing it, is this very nice little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps, 6 key points about how do you really level up your game in whatever you're doing. But that's the kinds of things, I mean, in the world that we are living in right now, we are saturated by messages around us. We are saturated with information. There are a lot of things that are happening. People are trying to survive. You're right, people are trying to survive. So how do you now understand what are the issues that people are facing and experiencing? How does that connect to what you care about and what you are passionate about? And how are you helping people see that connection? So you start by seeing it from their perspective, meeting them where they are at, and then providing them with the accessible information along the way to get them to see your perspective. And I can guarantee that when you do that as well, you're going to be learning and you're going to be growing and you're going to be seeing different perspectives. The thing about communication is that your core ideology, your core concepts, your core messaging will probably remain the same. Where you engage and the way you understand and the way you deliver will evolve as you learn more, as you grow more, as you interact more.
Lawrence, I love that. I said, how do you best deliver your message? And you pulled the handbrake and you said, no, first you need to see where people are at. And I think that's so important because you said you learn from them and your message itself is going to change significantly after you learn where that person is at. Your perspective is also going to change. So thank you for that beautiful answer about really making it about your audience before it's about yourself. I think that's an important one for us to hold early in our career, but also throughout our careers. Vandana, you did not just create markets, but you created change within policy and governments. These I think are sometimes the most challenging stakeholders to work with and sometimes the most intimidating ones because, people tend to want or tend to move towards a status quo. Can you speak to us about building movements in the context of working with governments based on your experience, some stuck points you may have encountered and maybe how you overcame or moved beyond those stuck points?
Yeah, so with when I started, like I said, I didn't know where this was going to go. So I'll give a couple examples of things that I have done that may be a bit unconventional, but for example, I knew some of the key players that I needed to get on board. And so, for example, with SwimCall, which is our waste management company here in Trinidad and Tobago, so they handle all the landfills and they basically are the ones that collect all the waste from households. So for the ones that are not familiar with SwimCall, that's who they are. So I knew I needed them on board. And so I just decided, this was before COVID, by the way. So before you had to, make appointments and everything was very virtual and guarded. But yeah, I just showed up to Swimco's office multiple times, introduced myself to the receptionist, asked to speak to the CEO, got shut down many times, kept going, kept leaving my card. And then eventually the CEO called me. And probably I thought maybe to give me a restraining order, but luckily he was quite impressed with my tenacity, as he said. And he said, you know what, Vandana, I want to meet with you. You clearly have something to say, like, come by. We set up an appointment. So this time I went by and met with him. Until this day, he is actually one of my mentors and he's part of our team now. He's one of our consultants that is helping guide our projects. And so, I just stuck with it, to be honest. And I did the same thing to the Ministry of Planning. I just kept showing up until someone was like, okay, maybe if we meet with her, she'll leave us alone. And, from there, I still have very good relationships with many of the people there. I still, I'm invited to conversations to have an impact there. And also with my customers, when I started, I had a cooler with wheels and I packed all my samples in there and I would just go up and down Arapita Avenue, loading it into my car, taking it out, knocking on doors and just saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, can I speak to the manager? Can I speak to the owner of this restaurant? Showed them my samples, my booklets, tried to explain to them what I was doing. And actually from doing that, some of my customers that I still have today, 7 years later, were those people that I met and I knocked on their doors and they probably thought I was crazy, but I just thought, well, what do I have to lose, And so some of it was just having that passion and tenacity, not caring so much about what people would think. Obviously going in with politeness and knowing that not everyone wants to hear you and that's okay as well, but you will get some people that actually do want to hear what you have to say. So that's kind of how I started fostering relationships. And I did get a lot of pushback. Some of the hardest things I've been through in my life were actually when I started to make a lot of noise about styrofoam and single-use plastics. We had the Ministry of Planning decided to have a consultation with myself and some of the manufacturers of styrofoam and plastic. And I walk into that room thinking, wow, this is amazing. We're going to get somewhere. And everyone went silent because these guys, I was the enemy. I was now disrupting their bread and butter that they've been making these products for 40 plus years. And here I am, this tiny little this woman coming in the room, talking about let's love Earth and planet and alternatives. And yeah, they were mean. Like there's no other way to put it. They were very mean. They tried to drag me through the mud. But again, having a good, strong team behind me and support system, and just having people say, Van, people are only being like this because you're doing something right and you're on the right side of things. If you weren't, they wouldn't care. So sometimes it takes a lot of belly and growing some tough skin, but now, man, I feel like I could face anyone. So I'm grateful for those opportunities of them tearing me down. I still have PTSD from it sometimes, but it's all part of growing. And it's a tough industry we're in, climate change is a really important thing. It makes people very uncomfortable. And so you need to have that toughness sometimes. And the last thing I'd end on is kind of what just wanted to share something that Lauren said that inspired me to share this too, is that, it's easy to preach to the converted, right? So, we even talked about when we joined this call, hey, we know Masal, we know Aki, we all knew each other because we're all already very passionate about this. But it's really to get people to join you. It's to somehow find a way to connect with the unconverted, the ones that kind of don't care. So whether it's, young parents who have kids and all, they're just trying to raise their family. They don't have time for anything else. But when you go to the beach with your family, like no one likes to see litter. They don't like to see, their kids playing and there's broken glass or there's styrofoam or there's dirtiness around. And that might be a way to connect with them, So it's really meeting people where they are, like Lauren said, and thinking outside of the box but what do I say to them to make them really care about what I care about? Because really and truly, everyone cares about their well-being, and the Earth's well-being is our well-being. But it's really just finding a way to make them see it like that. So that's what I'd say about having to find ways to have people join you on your journey.
I love that. You are working with some of the most challenging audiences, which is governments. And, you realize, okay, sure, you're not just about speaking to the converted, you're going into a tough battle that requires patience and tenacity. And, you drip fills a bucket, but sometimes people are going to try and, turn your bucket over. But you stuck with it. And I think, that tenacity and that patience, but also recognizing that it's going to be hard, is a very important thing to hold on to throughout the journey and for young people to hear. Akil, I don't know if you have an experience that you maybe want to share that ties into the last two things that we said. You mentioned that you maybe have an example that ties your previous message together. We have about 2 more minutes before I want to open it up for some questions to our attendees. So Akil, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Alexander. I'll be quick. I just thought that this would be an impactful example to share with the audience, and coming back to this theme of not being afraid to fight for what you think is right, not being afraid to stand up to authority and to be persistent, because that's the main message I got from Vandana just now. And I also have an example that goes along those lines. So my current role as the youth specialist comes from actually an opportunity that I got to attend the conference that my organization has every 2 years. Last year, actually, it was in Rwanda. And they were looking for a youth speaker from the Caribbean. And I actually had mentioned to one of my colleagues in the youth climate space at another conference that if there was ever an opportunity to be present at an event for this organization, because it's somewhere I've wanted to work for a long time, please let me know, because she had contacts and she had worked there previously. And so 8 months later, she remembered and she contacted me and said, there's an opportunity, would you like to take it? I went, I realized that, this is a foot in the door. I had a seat in the opening plenary of that conference. It was one of the scariest things I've done. I shared the panel with previous world leaders and high-level UN representatives, and it was an the role of youth in the climate crisis and intergenerational collaboration. And I did all the preparation that I could, because we really only have, as youth, we only have one opportunity to impress. They're looking for reasons to discredit youth and to not take us seriously. So we have one opportunity. Take these chances that you get. And so I made the most of the panel. It went really well. And then I told myself, I'm going to leave here with at least my CV on someone's desk. And so I went to the CEO's office in the conference center. The CEO is also not an easy woman to approach. She is as well as being the CEO of Sustainable Energy for All, she's the co-chair of United Nations Energy and the special representative to the UN Secretary General for SDG 7. So a very, very busy, very decorated professional. And I asked her for a meeting and her assistant said no. So I said, okay, cool. And I left and I went and I spoke to her colleagues and I said, this is what I'm doing. I really want to work with youth. I love the mission of the organization. They said, we'll see what we can do, but can't make any promises. I said, okay. I went back the next day. I asked her for 5 minutes of her time. Said no. I said, okay, cool. On the third day, she offered me a job, so just seeing the tenacity and the persistence. And I was able to actually write my own job description by basically saying, this is what I want to do. She said, this is what I want to see done. And I met those two in the middle and was able to do this and be at this level of, a global representative at the age of 28, and I was 27 when I got the job, but that's only because I took the risk. I knew what I wanted. I spoke to people, I networked, I had my mentors advising me along the way. And I was persistent. I didn't go away just because she said that she was busy. And I want you guys to also take away this really important message that Vandana has also shared. This tenacity is really, really, really important. because people will give you the time of day when they realize that you're passionate about what you're doing. And if they don't, keep trying, try another approach. It will work out. The work that we're doing is really important and we need all hands on deck. And as Vandana also shared, sometimes you're going up against the wall. Don't let that discourage you. You need to keep pushing. And by getting more and more people like us, thinking like us, then we can really move the needle. So over to you, Alex. I know the time is short.
I love that. And Lawrence articulated your previous things as a playbook, and I think you just added a lot of color to that playbook. But I think the people really need to take home, a couple of key messages from you, which is you need to make a plan, you need to take the risks needed for that plan to work. You need to realize that it's not going to work out sometimes, and that those rejections are important. That means that you're trying your plan, but sometimes it will. And I think it's really important that all of you guys spoke about rejections and difficulties that you have, because these are things that people are going to encounter along their journey. But these rejections have a very important role in your personal learning, in refining your message, and eventually getting to that point where you get that yes, you get that conversion, and you get a big job by 28, So all of these things are things that people need to take home with them and realize it's not, walking the walk is not a smooth road all the time, but eventually you get there. We're into our last couple of minutes. I'm going to turn it back to Lawrence. Do you have any final thoughts, any important take homes for our Gen Z participants, based on your experience about talking the talk, walking the walk, making sure you don't end up with blisters and a sore throat?
Thanks, Alex. 1 point for our panelists. Definitely, I would like to see that playbook coming out from Akil. We're happy to help you on that.
You have homework.
Gems. He was just dropping
You have
gems
homework.
this morning.
It's a post.
And to the audience, get a team. Get a team of people. Get your team. We spoke about mentorship. And mentorship goes in multiple different directions. Get a team of people around you who you can trust, who you can talk to for very different things in your life. This is not going to be an easy journey for change, but the only thing that is constant in life is change. Change has to happen. Change will happen. The work that you are doing, the work that people are doing, you will find that the more people who do similar work, is going to move from being drop-in bucket to being waves. So find a team, build a team around you who can support you through all of the different needs that you have, your passions, your dreams, your personal life, those sorts of things. You are a human being. So find a team around you, find people around you who you can rely on, you can count on, you can check in with, who you can be there for as well, to be with you and journey with you to the change that we will definitely be seeing.
Lawrence, I love that. And you reminded me that Vandana also said that's an important part of working in different environments. It's having that support system after you to with weather those difficult moments. Vandana, do you have any final thoughts you want to share? I think we're in our last 60 seconds.
Yeah, just, don't be afraid to follow your passions and take risks. The beautiful thing about youth is that you have time to fumble a bit and recollect and keep going. The jobs that we have now were not the jobs of the past, and the jobs of the future are not what are there now. So don't be afraid to try something new and go down on uncharted paths. I would just say, just go out there and be yourself and take the risks and just stick to it, and you will find those rewards. You may have to change up along the way, but, just be yourself and you will find your way. So just wanted to share that, to take some risks as you go forward, because they definitely pay off.
I love that. So guys, take the risk, realize it may be difficult, but as Vandana says, it pays off. I want to thank all of our attendees today. I learned a lot. This session felt like a partnership, so we actually embodied a lot of things we were speaking about. And I really hope that based on Lawrence's co-mentorship, Akil comes up with a playbook that you can write out in a LinkedIn post. I'm encouraging you to do that. So I would like to thank Vandana, Akil, and Lawrence for really beautiful thoughts. Even I learned a lot, and there are things that I will take on looking into the future. Now we have a DJ session, so you guys can bubble and bubble. It's Saturday, normally Bubble Soup in Jamaica. I know Trinity do the same thing. Listen to some music, enjoy the afternoon before our evening session. But thank you guys so much, and I'm looking forward to continued partnership and conversation with you guys. So let's continue walking the walk. I know we do